In this week's podcast, we discuss Jonathan Taylor, Skull Candy earbuds, and Austin saves the NFL. That's right. I'm a hero.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm
Austin Thompson, and this is my podcast. What is up, people? It is me, Austin Thompson, and yes, this is my podcast. We are gonna try and make this fancier and nicer, and we're gonna add some sound effects, and we are going to try and do this on a regular basis. I'm holding to it because life. No, I'm gonna try and do at least an episode a week. Maybe more, may look to get some guests. So if you were interested in being on a podcast with a guy that nobody's ever heard of, then holler at your boy, because that is me. Also going to work on getting some sponsors, but we shall see how that goes. But mostly, I just want to put out content that doesn't suck. You can find me on the Twitters at Austin Wrote That. You can find me on the Gram at Austin Wrote That. You can also find me on Facebook at Yep, Austin Wrote That. So, with that being said, let's just get into it. We're going to go, this is going to be a short podcast, not too long. Going to knock out a couple of topics, throw in some goofiness, hopefully entertain you a little bit, and see what happens. If you like it, let me know. If it sucks, let me know. I would like for you to like it, and I would like to make it better. So if you have any constructive criticism, let me know. Don't just tell me that I suck, because I'm me. I'm fully aware of the fact that I might suck at this. On to the first topic. So, a couple weeks ago, I was on the Eat Sleep Fantasy podcast because Dale asked me to be on it, and I am a contributor to the website, and being on a podcast is fun and awesome. So we were going through a Q&A, and we got to a question about running backs, and I'm still working on my rankings because this off season kind of sucks, and I'm trying to do more research and read more news and follow the right people and gather, some knowledge about these things, and I just haven't finished. But during that podcast, I during ranking the running backs, brought Jonathan Taylor into the top 10. Which, as I said it was kind of like watching a train wreck or a car accident. You're like, you want to yell, no, but you don't have the time to do it, and you're in slow motion, and you're trying to run, and the person gets hit by a car anyway. Well, my version of the person getting hit by the car was me basically saying that I wanted to fit Jonathan Taylor into the top 10. Which kind of sounded crazy after I said it, and I may have sat around the house drinking excessively and thinking about the thing that I said. And then I watched more Jonathan Taylor footage. I looked at some numbers. I did some math. I looked at more footage of other running backs. I did some comparing of numbers. And I just thought, I kind of broke down how I felt about each of the guys who were in the top 10. And I might not be wrong. Actually, I think I'm going to take a stand. I don't have many places where I take a hard stance on anything, and I haven't had many hot takes, except for the Saints will go 7-0 to start the season take. But upon doing some research, I looked. So let me just ask you a question. If I told you that in a guy's last season playing football, he got better than the first 2 seasons he played football, that you would say that is a plus. You would say that is a good thing, and that is what should happen. That's how I feel. I like for a guy in year 1 to be okay. Then I like him to get better in year 2. And by year 3, I want him to be kind of a baller. And that is kind of what Jonathan Taylor did at Wisconsin. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand he's playing in the Big Ten, and I'm not knocking the Big Ten. I'm just saying the Big Ten is not the SEC, where a lot of high-caliber players come from. So I'm taking that into account. But let me just say that, let's say there was a player, and that player had 303 attempts, 16 touchdowns, 9 runs of 20 or more, 3 runs of 40 or more. I don't necessarily care about the runs. I mean, it's cool. It's a neat stat, but I care more about attempts and touchdowns. Because if he doesn't get the ball, he can't score. If he doesn't score, I don't want him on a fantasy football team. So that's how I look at it. But let's just say there was a guy who did 303 attempts, 16 touchdowns. That guy was the number 1 running back in fantasy football last year. His name was Derrick Henry. But let's just say, and I understand that the NFL and college football are 2 separate things. But I can only go off the numbers I can go off of. So with that being said, let's just say there was another guy who had 308 attempts. That guy also had 16 touchdowns. And that guy was Jonathan Taylor in Wisconsin. So he is used to taking a beating, a pounding. He's used to getting a lot of attempts. But the thing that I found most interesting about Jonathan Taylor's career at Wisconsin was, if you go back and look from in 2017, 18, and 19, those are 3 years he played. Receiving touchdowns, 2017, 0. Receiving touchdowns, 2018, 0. Receiving touchdowns in 2019 is 5. He got better. You know, we're all looking for very versatile backs. We're not looking for just guys who can find a hole and run and grind and put your head down and pound yourself into everybody else's bodies. I want a guy who can be a pass-catching back. He didn't do it for 2 years. And then apparently, they decided to work him in and let him catch some passes. And he did that, and he scored touchdowns. Every player needs to be able to evolve. You also need to be a good offense. You also need to have good coaching. There's lots of variables that go into it. But if I take Jonathan Taylor's numbers from last year, he is better than Nick Chubb, Christian McCaffrey, Ezekiel Elliott, Chris Carson, Lamar Jackson, Leonard Fournette, Josh Jacobs, Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, and Marlon Mack. Now, let's just point out the fact that I'm fully aware of the fact that Marlon Mack is still there. But he is also an aging running back. He's also on the team when they drafted Jonathan Taylor. You didn't draft Jonathan Taylor to be a non-factor. So this is where everybody comes at me with the, well, if Mack is there and Taylor is there, one of them has to be the number 1, one of them has to be the number 2. It's like we forgot that Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram were a 1A and 1B when they were together. So it is possible in the NFL to complement another back while teaching that back. There was no, as far as we knew, no ill will or beef towards Kamara and Ingram. So why do we think that it can't be done in Indy with Marlon Mack and Jonathan Taylor, who happen to have an old, aging quarterback who's already admitted he wasn't that accurate last year, and it's something he has to work on? Why? I mean, it's just totally unfeasible. It's not. I think it can happen. So I'm going to plant the Austin Thompson running back flag on the mountain and say that I think that Jonathan Taylor will be a top 10 running back, which means I'm also saying that Marlon Mack will probably be a top 10 running back too. Now, Marlon Mack could be the 1B and Jonathan Taylor could be the 1A, but we don't know. We're going to find out. But I'm just saying, it's not completely inconceivable. So there, I said it. I planted my flag. And if a year from now you want to crush me because I was wrong, fine. If I'm wrong, come at me. I will own it. And now it's time for a little segment we call Sponsor, Not a Sponsor, because we don't have a sponsor. So I decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and find sponsors that I like. I mean, now if somebody else wants to just throw some money at the podcast, cool. You know, I'm here for you. Ford, Chevy, McDonald's, Audi, whatever. I don't care. But I decided that what I was going to do was I was going to just make my sponsors, my unofficial sponsors, for legal reasons. I feel like I should say unofficial sponsors. I'm going to make my sponsors people or businesses and entities that I actually use. So I am currently right now rocking my Skull Candy earbuds. And I love them. I've been using Skull Candy way before I had the idea for this podcast. This is probably my third pair, and I love them. I have the Sesh, I guess is what you would say, the SCSH model. I love them. They come with this nifty little rechargeable case. They last for 8 hours, and I've tested that 8 hours thing a lot. I use them every day when I work. I'm using them now while I'm recording this podcast. I use them when I record my podcast with Eat Sleep Fantasy, and if anybody wants to have me on as a guest, I will be using them then. So, my unofficial sponsor of the week is Skull Candy. Alright, next up, Austin saves the NFL. I think we could all agree we really miss football. And we really want football to come back. So we kind of hope they don't F this up, right? That's how I feel about it. I don't want them to shit the bed. That's it. We're going to be explicit content. I'm going to cuss. I don't want them to shit the bed on this. Because I need football. A, for entertainment purposes. B, for entertainment purposes. And C, for gambling purposes. I like to play the DraftKings and the FanDuel. Also willing to have you guys as sponsors. Holler at your boy. So throughout 2020, which has been one hell of a year, we have seen NASCAR adjust to COVID, get it right. We've seen the NBA adjust to COVID and get it right. We saw Major League Baseball shit the bed so hard they had to just double up on doubleheaders, which is just such a bad look. And in my own personal opinion, I feel like NCAA football is screwing us up also. We probably won't have college football, and even if we do, it won't be all the conferences. So there's that. This year's going to have an asterisk by it no matter what happens, for a lot of reasons. So here is my solution for the NFL to save football in 2020. Step 1.